Mr. Agarwal, thank you very much for joining us today here on NDTV Profit. Good to have you on the show. Can you tell us firstly how has been the quarter so far, year so far for the company as compared to last year?
Well, the quarter is just closing today and I am yet to get the numbers. Overall, I can say that the business is good, and I would also like to add that ours is really not a quarterly business. Ours is more annual business, because each quarter is different, and each quarter compared to the last year's quarter is very different actually, because the variation in the kind of films which come. So no quarter indicates, but however, as we have seen year on year, last 5 years if I see, we have been clocking 44% CAGR on advertising revenue, while the comparison between various quarters has been very different. So overall, I think it's good.
Right. In terms of number of screens that you have, are you looking to increase when it comes to getting the ad revenues?
Yes. So what we are basically doing is that earlier, we had clocked rights on certain number of screens, like 3,700 something screens, and now what we are doing is that the smaller multiplex chains and the smaller theatre chains whose advertising rights we did not have before, now we are continuously acquiring those rights. So except the major multiplex chains, we are acquiring for all the smaller chains, and the screens where we didn't have the ad rights, continuously we are expanding it.
What is the target for FY17?
Target for the number of screens, or
number of screens and the ad revenue?
Ad revenue this year we believe, I think, because now the base is growing bigger. Last year we clocked a revenue of 158 odd crores of advertising. We expect a ad revenue growth of around 30% this year.
Okay, what is the current ad revenue per screen, and how much do you think you will be able to scale it up to?
So last year we did around 4.15 lakh rupees per screen, which was only actually 4.1 minutes of inventory utilization across all screens on an average. So this we are expecting to add by 30%. So you can say approximately 5.5 lakh rupees, 5.4 to 5.5 lakh rupees per screen should be the ad revenue in the current. That's what our target is.
Right. And for increasing the number of screens and all, what kind of capex have you lined up for FY17?
No, the increase of number of screens, the capex, now we are out of the capex cycle, because the number of screens, all screens have been digitized in the country. So what we are doing is that, so only capex that we have now is mostly the replacement capex. So we expect to have a capex of 50 to 60 crore a year now, which is substantially down from earlier capex that we used to do. And for increasing these number of screens just for the ad rights, there is no additional capex required, because these screens have been digitized and we are only acquiring the rights for advertising.
Right. And what's the current debt level and plans ahead on that front?
Well, we are in a negative net debt situation. As on 31st March, we had a net debt of just 2.5 crores, and which is now completely wiped out. So we are in a net cash situation. So we are not expecting to be in the net debt situation current year onwards.
Right. Overall, any targets that you can give us for the current financial year in terms of revenue? You've already given us a target for your ad revenue growth, but overall, and what is it that one should be looking forward to from UFO Moviez ahead?
I think the ad revenue target is the most important target, because that is where our growth is coming. Because all additional ad revenue adds almost 55 to 60% of that goes directly into the bottom line. So this is the most important target for us to chase, and so far as the bottom line is concerned, lot depends on the tax situation and all. So earlier we had So earlier we had a lot of benefit of the carry forward losses from previous year, but now since for last few years we have been continuously into the profit situation. So we expect a healthy growth on PAT also. It is difficult for me to give a number now.
Right. Since you mentioned that, this is the most important parameter for your company, the ad revenue growth. How much has been the growth, say, in the last few years? What has been the trend like on a yearly basis?
So last year, which is FY 2015-16, we grew by 35%. Last 5 years, CAGR, the compounded annual growth has been 44% on ad revenue. And current year, as I said, now since the base is getting bigger, so we are expecting a growth of around 30% this year.
Okay. And in terms of the real demand or the real target, what is really going to be the government space, corporate sector? I mean, where do you think the maximum demand will be coming in from?
Well, this mix has been changing very rapidly. So 5 years back, we were 80% of our advertising revenue was actually coming from the government sector, government and PSUs, and only 20% was coming from the corporate sector. Last year, on the much enhanced revenue, as I said, there was a 44% growth, annual growth. On the enhanced revenue, the corporate and government was reduced from 80% to 52%, and corporate sector was actually 48%. So corporate sector grew by almost 10 times in last 5 years. And from the current year onwards, we are expecting that the corporate sector will take over in percentage terms the revenue from the government ads. However, both are growing very healthily, are contributing to this 30% growth.
Why I asked you specifically that question, because these days we have seen government ads really, increasing, especially in Delhi. So if there has been any change of that sort as far as the mix is concerned in the recent times?
Not at all, not at all. So in our case, as I said, it is exactly the reverse.
Okay.
So government has grown by in last 5 years, government has grown by just 2.5 times, and the corporate has grown by almost 10 times.
And what about the rates and all? I mean, do you think they are due for a revision anytime soon if they were recently revised or something?
So the government, the rate card was fixed by DAVP, INP Ministry in the year 2010, and the same rates are continuing even now. So we have requested the government, we have applied to the government, for revision of rates. And I believe that our application is being favorably considered. So, let's see. We are keeping the fingers crossed, and that again should give benefit to us once the rates are revised.
What kind of a change are you looking forward to? As in, how much of a hike are you looking forward to in terms of rates?
Well, we have requested the government to give us a hike which is linked to the inflation over last 5 years. I mean, change in the price index. So we have requested for that. Now let us see what the government gives. I do hope that they consider our request favorably and give us what we have demanded.
And are we likely to get the decision outcome anytime soon? I mean, what's the plan? Maybe first half of this year, are we likely to hear something?
Honestly, I do not know, because government is considering the request, and I think there are proposals pending for other mediums also, like TV, radio, etc. So all are under active consideration of the government, and we are expecting it for last, we are camping with the government for last 3 years. It hasn't happened yet, so I really don't know whether it will happen now or it will happen next year or it will happen in this quarter or next quarter. I don't know.
All right, Mr. Agarwal, thank you very much for joining us today here on NDTV Profit and sharing with us the details of how the year is panning out for the company. So they're quite upbeat as far as their ad revenue growth is concerned. They're expecting a 30% growth in ad revenue in the current financial year.